So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're just talking about the fact that there are so many Zoom meetings all the time, so we are delighted that you could join us. And of course, as always, we'll record this too. So as always, I'm Zena Cox from ideasUK, and we are joined by the team from the Innovation Network too, who are going to be taking today's session, and we're delighted that we get the opportunity to work with them each month. So welcome, and I'll hand straight over to Grant.
No, brilliant. Well, I'm going to hand straight over from me to Rhodey, but we're doing a two for the price of one deal today, talking about more agile ways of working. So as always, we love working with ideasUK. It's such a pleasure to see old faces and new. So Sarah, Julie, the others, welcome. Nice to see you. Sheila, soon to be one of our alumni. Nice to see you. And is it Chris? Chris, who's, I got the right Zoom name there, but nice to see you again.
Jeff.
Jeff, all right, apologies. All right, so Rhodey, do you want to kick us off? Add more agile ways of working. Let's do it. Sorry, Rhodey, are you there? You're not more agile.
Sorry, lost audio for a minute.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now you were more agile.
Good. So please just say your last sentence again, Grant, and I know what you said, so I know how to pick it up.
I was just saying, let's talk about more agile ways of working.
All right, that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, let me share some slides with you, just to talk a little bit about Agile. And so first part, I will do that, and then I will hand over again to Grant to give us some more insights, more ways of Agile working. So just give me a second and I will share my slides with you. And here we go. And here we are. Yes, click. Here it is. All right, so I should be able to see my slide right now. Is that correct?
Got you.
All right. So, well, Agile, it's a term we hear a lot, but actually, what is it? Well, and also in preparation of this session, I did some research on the internet to see how many definitions you see around Agile. I didn't count them, but there are quite a lot. So what I always like with these kind of terms and words is to give you our perspective on how we see it, to give you our context, to sort of see how we use terms like these and processes that come with Agile. So if you talk about Agile, you see sometimes people see it as a sort of process in itself, but there's also a context where you see that Agile is used for all kinds of different processes that help you to speed up your innovation and ideation. So all kinds of processes, you may have heard of some of these: design thinking, Scrum, Lean Startup, Kanban, service design, Lightning Decision Jam. It's all kinds of processes that help you to become more agile. But then still, what is Agile? So we're not going to dive into all of these processes today, but just to give you sort of context on where we see Agile as a sort of overarching term for all these kind of processes that help you to speed up your innovation and ideation. So Agile ways of working are very effective to increase adaptability of people, so being more adaptable to change, to quickening business value, to come to new business value much quicker, and reduce the risk over the duration of an initiative. So if you're, for example, in an innovation project, you're doing something new, you don't know what the outcome will be yet. So what you want in your process that you use is reduce the risk over the duration of that initiative that you are working on. Innovation is risky, it feels insecure, and that's what you see as a dynamics in organizations. So wherever you can reduce that feeling of risk, that's what you want. So that's basically what the Agile ways of working try to help you to achieve. So, and there's basically three primary motivations for adopting Agile. You can increase the speed of delivery, so you can speed up your time to market for new products and services, for example. But it also ensures client satisfaction because you focus on customer needs. That can also be internal clients, by the way. So if you're trying to improve or innovate on an internal process, for example, and you're optimizing efficiency and flexibility in your workforce. And what I like about these things is that we sometimes use the example of IBM, which has been using design thinking, one of the processes that you can use in an agile way of working. And they've done some quite interesting research. So coming from these 3 points that I have on screen right now, there's actually some results of their independently done research on the results and why to use design thinking. And I just wanted to share quick some of the outcomes, because these address these 3 points. So increasing the speed of delivery, ensuring client satisfaction, and optimizing efficiency. As you can see, coming from this research, you see this improving customer satisfaction and reduced time to market. That's literally coming out of this research done in IBM and amongst their clients about the results of introducing design thinking, being an agile way of working, but also elimination of redundant processes across teams. So, so research shows that these sort of outcomes is what you can get when you use agile ways of working, and specifically in this case, design thinking. But when you talk about agile, it's fundamentally differs from, sorry, I'm just going too quick with my slides here. Just give me 1 second. So it differs fundamentally from traditional ways of working. So it's based on loops, and it's a non-linear way of working, where we see a lot of times where you in organizations that are used to sort of linear process management processes, for example, which are very linear, where agile ways of working are based on loops, which allow you to start to learn and to improve while you're doing your project. So, for example, when you're working in an agile way, you always start with the customer needs. What are their pain points and their needs you're trying to satisfy? And you're coming up with solutions by ideation and brainstorming session, for example. But before you want to build the full solution, you want to know whether or not this will resonate with your target audience, with the customer needs. So that's where you want to first start build a prototype. And when you have that prototype, you want to test it, of course, and to measure what the outcomes are, and to see if the needs are satisfied of your customers. And then you want to learn from that and refine and build an improved prototype. And then you go through that loop over and over again. That's basically what you see in all these kind of agile processes, that you go through these loops. So you start with the very first simple draft of your product in a simple prototype, and by going through these loops, improving it in every loop that you go through. So that's basically how we see agile ways of working in general. And this loop that you see on screen right now, it's literally coming from the lean startup methodology, which is one of the agile ways of working as we see it, the build, measure, learn loop. And this is the point where we wanted to sort of dive into an example as a process, lean startup as a agile way of working, where I want to hand over to Grant to tell us a little bit more about how that works in that specific process.
Amazing, Rody. So I'm going to steal your screen share. Sure. Make sure I've got audio. I've got some videos to show you. Let me know if that's showing okay.
It's coming up.
Awesome. So as always, we love to leave you with some tools in your toolkit for more agile ways of working. And only to echo what Rody said, we're looking for ways to decrease risk, move quicker, and create more value. And here's some tools for you to be able to do that with your solutions, whether it's in a startup or in a big company. So anyone know who this man is? We're not going to name him yet for fear of embarrassing him. But like many of us, he was from a large corporate in the US. He was in the shower and he had an idea while he was in the shower. And you have the best ideas in the shower. So he had a new product idea. And he took a non-agile approach to developing it. So let me tell you a little bit about this idea. So this is 2007. Now, Connor, in 2007, we didn't have mobile phones. We didn't really have many apps. So he had this novel idea of mobile TV, live TV on the go, which today we take as a given. But in 2007, that would have been pretty revolutionary. But Rody, he didn't think in an agile way. He was thinking waterfall. Like most big companies, he took $800 million and he decided to invest that in starting a new mobile TV service. So it was pretty revolutionary, 17 channels, but there was a catch. You had to buy this device on the right-hand side, which would set you back $250 US to be able to watch this live TV on the go. So waterfall approach, heavy investment, 800 million to bring this idea that he had in the shower to life. Can I get a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or maybe a hovering thumb of whether this was a good or bad approach? Let's see what everybody's thinking. Okay, you're all more optimistic than me, but let's go and take a look at what happened. Then meet another guy who had an idea. Now, this was also in and around the 2000s. Now, Connor, we used to have these things. I'm going to stop this joke one day, but not this year. Before online shopping, Connor, we used to have these things called shops, right? Now, Nick had this idea. Yeah, crazy, right? Nick had this idea of an online shoe store. So this in the early 2000s was pretty revolutionary. Don't go to a store to buy your sneakers. Could you buy them online? So early 2000s, pretty revolutionary. But he was a startup. He definitely didn't have $800 million of waterfall project methodology to launch this online shoe store idea. So let's go and take a look at what Nick did. So Nick decided to put up a very simple website, which cost him about $100, 100 US to set up. So he had this experiment that people would want to buy shoes online. He set up a website and he put some pictures online where people could come along and choose their sneakers online. When someone bought a pair of shoes, he would rush down to his local shopping mall and he would buy those shoes retail, rush to the post office and ship them. So it was a little bit crazy. He was running at a loss, but he was doing something quite interesting. For $100, he was testing this idea, this hypothesis of whether people would buy their shoes online rather than from a traditional store. And that's exactly what he did. So let's go and take a look what happened. What do you think happened next? Well, Paul put his $800 million into this idea. That's at best got a floating thumb. What do you think of Nick's idea of testing out this idea for an online shoe store with a simple website, $100, and seeing if people buy those shoes? Give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a sideways thumb of what you think of that idea. Julie, I agree with Julie. Sorry, Rody. It was pretty clever because he was testing out his idea without a lot of money. So Flow TV launched in 2009, $800 million US later. Now, only 2% of US mobile subscribers wanted to watch live TV on their mobile phones. And in 2011, Paul had to shut down the service, refunding his customers and $800 million in losses. But a really good example of a normal corporate process. We come up with this product, we commit resources, and hell for leather, we launch, right? Sound familiar? I suspect to anyone that's worked in a corporate, that sounds pretty familiar. But let's go and take a look at Nick. So Nick had launched shoesite.com. In 2000, he'd managed to build up 1.6 million of revenue, all from this $100 website and selling shoes at a loss, but proving traction. He managed to raise some capital from his first round of funding. He changed his name to Zappos.com and continued to raise funding. And I think he'd raised the funding because he'd proven that the concept would work. In 2009, Zappos was acquired by Amazon for $1.2 billion. Now, $1.2 billion, not a lot of money, but if you budget carefully, you could get by on that. Quite a higher return of investment than a poor old Paul with his Flow TV. So who do you think is the winner? It's got to be Nick, right? So goodbye, Paul. And here's a scary statistic. This is from the Harvard Business Review, which says 72% of all new product launches fail. Now, this statistic keeps me awake at night. And I think it's true for solutions, services, processes within a large corporate. The vast majority of things that we build fail. And have you got any guesses why? So can you drop me a note into chat? And Rody, I'm going to ask you to call them out for us. Drop into chat. First of all, do you think that's true? Do you think products, services, processes, do you think the bulk of them fail? And why do you think that is? Drop some notes into chat. Tell me if you think I'm right or not.
No demand, I see from Zina.
Yeah.
Julie says lack of understanding of the market.
And we've all done it, right? We've all had that £1 million business idea, and we've probably thrown some money at it, but it's almost never what the user actually wanted. Any other interesting ones coming through already?
It's no, not yet.
Yeah, let's go and take a look, right? So this is a study from Greylock and Partners, which is the #1 reason why startups fail is they built something that no one wanted. So the #1 factor that startups fail is no market need. They built something that no one really wanted. And I'm certain that that's true for corporates as well. So be it a startup proposition, be it a product or service that we're launching to market, or be it a process in a large corporate, we build these things in a waterfall way. We commit lots of resources, but we never really checked whether it was what the users wanted or needed. And for me, that's the benefit of Agile. And Rody mentioned those short loops. So it's short loops, it's experiments, it's iterations, and we adapt on the go to be sure that whatever it is that we're building, a process, a solution, it's what the user wants, and there's evidence of traction that they need it. So we're committing resource as the risk decreases. So one of my favorite US presidents, and Connor, recognize which burger store he's in?
Five Guys.
Yeah, Five Guys. So Five Guys is a fascinating example to link to Agile. So Five Guys started in 1986 with their first restaurant. Over the next 8 years, they grew to 5 more restaurants in Washington, D.C. And then they did this massive growth, which continues to grow, right? Well, pre-COVID, I actually haven't looked post-COVID, but I'm certain Five Guys will survive. My wife and son will be very upset if they don't. But they've got a global presence now. But why do you think they took so much time in the first 10 years of existence to perfect a model? And I think they did just this. They did experiments, right? They tested traction, and they wanted to build the world's best burger restaurant. And once they knew that they had the absolute best burger restaurant, it was only then that they started to scale, and then scale so successfully. So there's some really interesting comments from interviews with them. They said, we've got no intention of being a franchise company. We just wanted to be a good hamburger company. And we do fry calibration. So fries are much harder than burgers, and we work day and night on them all the damn time. We keep trying to refine what we already did. We set our house on fire, and that was quite literally while trying to figure out how to cook better fries. And they tried a chicken sandwich for a week, and then they pulled it and they went back to burgers. So they didn't commit a lot of resources. They just did these experiments to make the perfect product that they knew users wanted. So what we're Five Guys searching for, it's what we should all be searching for in our agile ways of working. They were looking for evidence of user need. They were searching for that magic word, traction. So be it a new process, a new expense process for your team, a new meeting schedule, a new form of online collaboration. I really want to iterate this. This is not just for startups. It's not just for product launches. It's for anything that you want to do. A service, a process, a solution. We're searching for traction, and we want to do that in as risk-free, inexpensive a way as possible. So whatever it is that we want to build and launch, we want to do some tests, prove traction, prove that users want it, and then invest and scale, just like Nick did with his shoe store. So he was selling those shoes at a loss, right? And I see now in America, there's some shoe stores that their whole business model is charging you to just try on the shoes because they know you're going to go to Zappos to buy them, but you can still go to the mall and for $10 try them on to find your right shoe size. So there's money in everything, but the Nick proved traction. As he proved traction, people invested, and he was able to grow that concept with minimal risk. So these are some of our favorite lean books. My favorite is The Lean Startup. Absolutely love it, and it's well worth a read if you haven't had a look at it, but I'm going to give you some of the key concepts. And Lean Startup, as Rody mentioned, is one aspect of lean, but there's some neat examples of agile methodology in there. So there's 4 key principles to the Lean Startup. The first one is, and it's the hardest one, I think, don't fall in love with your first idea. And we add to that, fall in love with the user pain. So we all have those ideas in the shower. It could be a new process for work. It could be a new solutions idea. It could be a new product. And we fall in love with it. It becomes our baby, right? And have you ever had someone kill your baby in the office meeting? It's awful. I had a baby for a new training product that Connor killed yesterday. He did it very kindly. We did a test launch and no one clicked on it. So it hurts, but don't fall in love with your first idea. Fall in love with your user pain. The next one is don't fall into the build trap. So don't commit large amounts of resources and money. We don't fall into building yet. Fall in love with the user pain. The third one is commit resources as uncertainty decreases. So as you've got evidence of this traction, we know that people want it, then we can commit more resources. And none of this is by accident. We can use a scientific approach to test this. So in the Lean Startup, he talks about corporate entrepreneurship, but to reiterate, This applies to a process in an office, a solution. It applies to absolutely everything. It's the same principles. So some lovely examples of not falling in love with your first idea. Chad, Connor, do you ever remember an app called Bourbon? Now, there were some startup entrepreneurs that had this idea that people would love to check in when they went out to socialize with their friends. So the concept of Bourbon was that you'd want to see where your friends were, you'd want to meet up with them, share photos, and it was like a social app, right? Do you think people liked it? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, guys. Chad, you'd be right, my friend. No, Rody, it was to a younger target audience, not you and I. Chad, you're right. No one wanted it. But what they did notice at Bourbon is that people loved sharing their photos. So they didn't like any of the other functionality. They didn't want their friends to know where they were hanging out, but they loved easily sharing photos. And today, you and I know that app as, anyone got it? Want to type it into chat? Keep it coming, Rody. Today we know that as absolutely Instagram.
Instagram.
Yeah. So a really good example of not falling in love with your first idea. If they carried on with Bourbon, it would have failed. But they found a user niche. They did some experiments. They proved traction. And today we know that app as Instagram. The next one was really interesting. It was in Silicon Valley, also in the early 2000s. And it was for computer programmers, so software developers. And they created an app to share your status. So messaging software wasn't very common, and people would phone you. So they wanted a way to show people your status so that if you were sleeping or in a movie, people wouldn't try calling you. So they created a status app, and it was called My Status. Do you think it did okay? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. My Status app. Yeah, Zena, Rody, you'd be right. Yeah, Julie, it didn't do great. But what they did notice is that people loved to customize their status updates. So they would take the generic status updates and they started to customize them. And so they pivoted to an app that most of you have on your mobile phone. Today we know as, yes, Professor Rody, you'd be right, WhatsApp. So that ability to send messages is what they pivoted to. And that sold with very little physical assets for $16 billion to Facebook. So again, it was a flawed product that they managed to pivot to something that sold for $16 billion US. Also, one of my favorites, someone came up with the idea for a video game for good. So this was a video game where you earned points for doing nice, kind things and just being kind to people. Do you think people love that? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. No, they hated that. Unsuccessful glitch. We don't like being nice to people. Did not succeed. But whilst they were building the product glitch, they developed a messaging system for their software programmers. And today we know that messaging system is something that's probably on many of your machines called Slack. So again, it was just a messaging system they programmed for their own internal use, turned that into a product, proved traction, and the rest is history. Also a $1 billion product. So we say, don't fall in love with your first idea, fall in love with the problem, fall in love with your user pain, whoever your user might be. The next tool in the toolkit is don't fall into the build trap. And that's exactly what Rody was talking about. Most projects are waterfall, right? We have this idea, we commit resources, and we build this product. But there's some flawed steps we need to do in between, right? So first of all, we need to get that idea in the shower, but get it onto some sort of canvas, get the thoughts down, and then go and test and see, am I the only one? So does a user really want this? And in the case of a commercial proposition, we do want to prove that they can probably pay for it as well. Then we want to think about how do we test these assumptions, do some real life testing, and from there, we either get traction or we pivot. So that's a neat little tip. We never talk about failure. We only talk about pivoting. So pivoting just means that we took a different approach. So if your boss hates the word failure and failure is not possible in your organization, you don't fail, you just pivot. So we either pivot or we get some traction, proof that this solution is going to work, and then we commit more resources as we go. So this is a lovely example. Kids, don't try this at home. It's probably illegal today with the Financial Services Board. But this is what TransferWise did. Incidentally, TransferWise has just been through another growth spurt. So in 2011, Tavet Hinkrikus, I think he's a Bulgarian, had a vision for international money transfers. So he was living in London, sending money home to his family and for a mortgage, and it was really expensive and really slow. So he went around looking for investment, $1 million to launch this international money transfer. No one wanted it, right? No one was willing to invest, too risky. So what he did is he launched this landing page, and Connor, I've got a special prize for you if you can find a better image of this. Somewhere on the history of the internet must be TransferWise's very first web page. So it was a mock-up web page, and you could come along and do some money transfers. It was just a spreadsheet. So he would get people to deposit money, but there was no software behind it. At night, over dinner, him and his business partner would manually do these transfers after dinner at their kitchen table. So they manually process these transfers. You wouldn't know it from the website. You would have thought that your transfer had been processed, that it was in this fancy system. And they managed to transfer £1 million worth of payments. Today, that might be considered illegal, but that's what they did. So they proved traction, right? They got $1 million of transfer, no marketing expense, and 70% of customers came back and they did another transfer.
And maybe we can have a prize for people who know how you call a prototype like this. So where you put a person in a space, in a position, what later will be done by technology for your first
very
prototype.
good.
So
Very good.
what's that called? It's called a Wizard of Oz prototype.
Yeah, it's a lovely one. So Wizard of Oz
technology, why just the human hands in this case, until you prove traction, and then you start building your technology.
Sometimes called the concierge approach. So it looks like a software, but someone in the background is pulling the strings. We had a student that wanted to do a Christmas gifting app. So it was Christmas gifting met Tinder, the dating app. So you would choose a family member or friend's profile, and then you could swipe gift ideas until you found the one that you wanted. And you thought it was a software doing this, but it was all people when they were first testing.
That a great name. Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah, I forget. Do you remember what it was?
Help yourself.
Help yourself, yeah. PM. No, I don't think it is. So TransferWise, I think it is closer to $4 billion in valuation today, all from someone's kitchen table with some manual payments. But they proved the concept, got the funding, and the rest is history. One of Europe's most successful fintech startups, which is a great one. So we say, don't fall into the bull trap. Look for the cheapest and quickest way to validate your idea. Now, you could do this with a process for your business, a new system for anything, a new solution. You can find ways to test this out in a very quick, inexpensive way. We say commit resources as uncertainty decreases. So you only want to commit resources, time, energy, and money as you've got evidence of traction, as you know that there's proof that the user wants it. So if we have a look at Paul put all his money, 800 million US up here in the idea. Nick went and put his money in small tranches, $100 to start, but proving evidence that users wanted it. And as he had more proof of traction, so he invested more money, got more funding, until he did a multi-billion-dollar business out of that. So we say commit resources as the uncertainty decreases. And next, do you recognize this guy? Connor thinks that's a picture of me before I did the Body for Life gym program. Anyone else recognize who that is? Got any guesses? I'll give you a clue if you're feeling hungry. I also forgot breakfast, Chad. Will Sue was an investment banker working in Canary Wharf. He used to order in. So investment bankers, if you've ever done investment banking, they work nutty hours, pretty much live in the office. And they were in Canary Wharf. There were very few restaurants, very few stores. And he used to buy his dinner from Tesco's every night. And I've been to the Tesco's that he used to shop at, and it's awful at 9 p.m. at night. It's a mess and it's awful. But there was no way to eat, right? So there was no easy way to find a takeout. There was no easy way to know if that takeout was any good. User reviews, there was nothing like that. So he had this idea from Just Eat. So Just Eat had just taken off, but he was looking for a way that he would know that the food was decent quality and when it was going to show up. So Just Eat did takeout, but there was no way to know when it would arrive. So he went back, studied business, and it gave him some time to think. So while he was at business school in the US, he had this idea for what we today know as Deliveroo. So Will Sue came back to London, launched the concept of Deliveroo, which would let you choose your food, see user ratings, and see exactly what time it was due to arrive. And he started himself on a bicycle, delivering to his investment banker friends who made terrible fun of him. But he did it. He delivered the food himself, and he grew this thing organically. So what I love about Deliveroo is they grew to quite a large size with their own funding before they got their first round of investment. So he started it, he got more people on bicycles, built the app, a very rough prototype, and grew. And it's a fascinating story if you ever look it up. It was only once they were doing several neighborhoods in London that they got funding. Another favorite one of mine, one of our students, Sergio, had the idea for waffles on a stick. So there's lots of food in London, or prior to COVID, there's lots of delicious takeout food in London, but he'd never seen anyone doing waffles on a stick. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down for that. What do you think? Waffles on a stick? Do you think this is a billion-dollar proposition? Yeah, I suspect you're right. But Sergio was convinced that waffles on a stick was going to be the next billion-dollar product. So what he did is he created a store, he opened it up, and surprise, surprise, 2 months later, the store did not succeed. The waffles on a stick did not succeed. But Sergio actually had another idea, so he committed another £30,000 for Argentinian beef, best beef in the world, flown in overnight and coming to you from a store in Brixton. How do you think his overnight flown in Argentinian beef idea did? Best beef in the whole of London. There's no beating it. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Yeah, I'm afraid it was a thumbs down, and the butcher didn't succeed either. Never mind the carbon footprint, right? Which is disastrous. Maybe wrong location. There was something wrong. He didn't do the testing, and it failed again. Now, drop me a note in chat. What could he have done to test those ideas? So waffle on a stick, Argentinian beef. What type of things could he have done to prove traction? Got some ideas you want to share in chat? The obvious one to me is farmers markets, right? Universities, somewhere where you could go and have a little stand inexpensively. Pop-up stores, Ina, is a lovely one. Yeah, so very cheaply, you could go and test whether someone wanted that and would part with money for what? £100, a couple £100 maybe? But you don't need to open a giant store to do it. And it's all about small experiments, prove traction, invest as the uncertainty decreases. And we say this is a scientific approach. You can decide on these experiments, roll them out, get evidence, and from there you pivot. It's not going to work. Or if there's traction, it's worth committing more time, energy, and money. So we hope that that's interesting to you. I just wanted to share with you a couple of different ways you could do these experiments. So get it down on paper, and we've done some sessions on Miro. So if you hop onto one of the other ideasUK recordings, there's some lovely stuff on Miro, business models, thinking about whether you're the only person. And let's talk about some experiments to see whether users really do want this and whether we've got traction or whether we need to pivot. So the key question here when it comes to experimentation is what's the cheapest and quickest way we can figure out whether a user would buy or use our solution. So what's the cheapest, quickest experiment we could do to prove that the user wants and needs our solution? And I wanted to share with you one, which is one of my absolute favorites, called Dropbox. So Connor, last one for today, but we never used to have cloud backups for our data. We used to have these things called memory sticks. And you used to have dozens of memory sticks, all your stuff on there. But the challenge with memory sticks is they could fall into a puddle. You'd lose them on the bus. It was terrible. So picture a dark time with no online cloud backup software, lots of memory sticks that got corrupted, and you could lose assignments and all sorts of things. Then came along Dropbox. So Dropbox wanted to get funding to grow the concept of a cloud backup service. But they wanted to prove traction. So what they did is they created this landing page. And here's another challenge for you, Connor. I wonder if we can find this somewhere on the net. But it literally was a one-page landing page. And if you were interested in the solution, you popped in your email address. And they did a video, which I'm about to show you, linked to a one-page website where you had to register your interest. And they got 75,000 users signing up for it. That 75,000 users, let them get their first round of funding, and the rest is history. So let me show you this video.
You're pivoting, which is
You've
good.
been there. You're about to buy lunch and realize your
Audio?
wallet is in your other pants. Or maybe you left your keys at home. The problem is organization. You need one place for everything, like a magic pocket. Putting something in the magic pocket means it's always there, no matter what you wear or where you are. The same thing is true for computers. If you have more than one, keeping track of all of your files can be a pain. Solving this problem is one of the big ideas behind Dropbox. It's like a magic pocket, a single, secure place for all of your stuff. Let's meet Josh, who is preparing for a big trip to Africa. Right now, all of his trip info is spread across his laptop, desktop, and phone. He needs to consolidate it all and is tired of having to email files to himself or move them around with a USB drive. Then he found Dropbox, which creates a new kind of folder on his computers. These folders work hard to be exactly alike, even across Macs and PCs. By adding his itinerary to his laptop Dropbox, he can be sure the same file will show up in his desktop Dropbox and even on his phone. The same thing happens when he saves a document in a Dropbox folder. The document gets updated across all of his Dropboxes. But it's not just his computers. The Dropbox website also works to be exactly like his other Dropboxes. Anything he puts in Dropbox is available on the website automatically. This way, if his Jeep takes a dive and his computer is ruined, he can still get to his files on the Dropbox website, where they're always backed up. As it turns out, Josh's Safari was a success, and his laptop made it home with lots of videos and photos to share. Instead of emailing everything, he just shared a Dropbox folder with his mom, so she could get copies of photos she wants to frame. Because it worked so well for travel, Josh made Dropbox the home for all of his stuff, so it's accessible anytime, wherever he goes. Whether you're traveling the world, running a business, or simply organizing your life, Dropbox means you can stop worrying about managing files and backups and get on with your next adventure. You can download Dropbox now at getdropbox.com.
So you'd go to that little web page, you'd register your interest. There wasn't actually a product there yet, but you could register your interest, and the rest was history. What do you find interesting about that test? So that was the launch for Dropbox. What do you find interesting about that? Really low tech, right? You could mock that up if you had a couple of art students in a couple of hours. So it was low tech, low budget. It was just hand-drawn sketches in a simple little video. It was amazing, right? Julie, lovely one, looked like it already existed. And Julie, you inspiring me there. It really made you feel that it existed, and it hit your pain, right? If you'd ever lost your memory stick or lost your laptop, lost your photos from your holiday, like it really resonated with user pain, right? It was simple, but beautifully emphasized the user pain. So I love that example. So there's a whole lot of different ways that you can do experiments. So landing pages, ad campaigns, A/B testing, Rhodey's Wizard of Oz, the concierge services there, finding someone else's product and white labeling it as your own and selling it can be one. Crowdfunding, so like a Kickstarter campaign can be one. So we say the very best evidence of traction is to really go and prove that the user wants that solution. So we tongue-in-cheek hate focus groups, hate interviews. No, we don't hate them. But there's better experiments that can really prove that someone wants it, you know? Because when you're doing a focus group, someone probably feels they have to be nice. They feel they have to say good things about this prototype you've made. But really you want something where you can get true, honest user feedback and evidence of traction. So TransferWise was a great one. Again, landing page, and you could submit. And hopefully that's inspired in you some experiments you can do this week. So in summary, the 4 lean startup principles: don't fall in love with your first idea. Don't fall into the build trap. Commit resources as the uncertainty decreases, and apply a scientific approach to entrepreneurship. So we love this quote by Eric Ries: startup success, likewise innovation success, is not a consequence of good genes, being in the right place at the right time. It can be engineered by following a scientific process. And if it's a scientific process, it means it can be learned and it can be taught by absolutely anyone. So I hope that's interesting to you. I hope that gives you some ideas for agile testing. Rhodey, how are we doing for time? We've got time for a bit of questions, or should we do?
We got time.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's see if anyone's got any questions, and then we can do our lucky draw.
Yep. Anyone got a question on this about the story of agile ways of working, the introduction or the examples? Maybe you have another example yourself, would you like to share? No questions? No?
I think all of us have probably got a story of something where we invested a lot of time and energy and it didn't work, right? We've all been there, be it a business idea, a product offering, or even just a system that you try and implement with your team, you know? We've all been there, lost the t-shirt, I think. All right. As always, we've got a free seat on our Certified Innovation Facilitator to give away. It's worth £2,995. And Connor, I'm going to ask you just to do a lucky draw on your laptop. So Connor's got a wheel of misfortune, and he's going to do the lucky draw to see who the winner is today.
Chad, if you could just let me share my screen.
I don't worry about sharing screen.
Oh, okay,
just
okay.
do the lucky draw.
The wheel
for
is
us.
spinning.
The wheel is spinning. Who's going to
So
be
we've
the
got
winner?
M Brace Girdle.
Let's see if they're here.
Zoom names.
Okay. Okay.
So Embrace Girdle, if we will be sending you an email. So if you could put your email in chat, that'd be amazing.
Awesome. Okay, great. And as always, can you see Zena's contact details? There's the contact details for our ideasUK. Roddy, anything from your side?
No, I think that's about it. I think it's a good some good examples, Grant, on how you can start using agile ways of working, and in this specifically the lean startup methodology. And as I said in my introduction, basically all processes that I shared on one of the first slides, like design thinking, Scrum, etc. Of course, they have their differences, and you can sort of use all of them and sort of in different steps of your innovation process. But the basics are what you shared in your examples, where it all comes down to the 4 key principles, which you share with Lean Startup, but I think they go for any type of innovation process.
Absolutely.
That you use, like don't fall into the build trap, etc. Don't fall in love with your first idea. It's in general what you want in innovation process to have that mindset.
And agile ways of working, right? It holds true for that agile methodology as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant. And that, my friends, is that. Thanks so much, Zena. Thanks for having us. Thanks, everybody, for coming through today. Always great to see you and great to see some new faces. Julie, thanks so much. Glad it was useful. Appreciate that. Sheila, thanks.
I thought it was great, Grant, and I love the storytelling too and all the examples. I think that we really can learn so much from some of the things that have gone before. So thank you for sharing. And it's great that we've got another session next month. So Wednesday, the 14th of April at 10 o'clock, where we've got 2 of the ideasUK members actually sharing their experience of starting an innovation program under the title, Why Starting an Innovation Program Isn't as Sexy as We May Think. So we've got Chugai Farmer and Welsh Water. So do tune in for that too. But thank you so much for today. It was great.
Awesome. Thanks, Zena. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Cool.